Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. I've never liked being behind a podium. Can you hear me if I just project?
Sure.
Can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
Terrific. Well, welcome to the second event in New York Wiki's Multicultural Programming series. I think some of you know the genesis of this series. I had joined Wiki in 2010, and my intention was I would volunteer with whatever multicultural activities they had, because that was my area of expertise. And I found there was nothing. So it seemed like a little bit of an oversight. And with the very strong support of the whole programming committee at Wiki, I launched this series. What I really wanted to emphasize to this audience is that the series wasn't created for specialists. It wasn't created for people like me and all of these wonderful women on our panel who spend most of our professional lives thinking and working through these issues. The series was created for the majority of New York Wiki members, so that you can learn firsthand from the experts about the issues and the best practices involved in communicating with multicultural consumers. And the whole premise of it is that America has been changed, multicultural is mainstream, and this kind of knowledge and this kind of expertise has moved from being a specialist field to really a core competency for any professional communicator. So, that being said, I've got my email on the program, and I would like to encourage all Wiki members to put your voices out there and let me know what other issues, topics, challenges you would like to hear about. We did the first event in May. It was wonderfully successful. I think it really spoke to a lot of pent-up curiosity that people had. Since that first May event, there have been 3 trends or milestones that have happened, and they all start with more. More people, more media, and more advertisers. From the people perspective, obviously the 2010 census results were released. I know Audrey's going to share some really interesting data with us. The one figure I would pull out is that over 80% of the population growth in the past 10 years have come from multicultural consumers. So the second, more media, the flourishing of new media outlets to reach these multicultural consumers has at times been dizzying. I mean, even if you just think of the new English language media outlets to target Latinos, and for a while there it seemed like there was a new one every week. It's been really an amazing flourishing. And marketers, advertisers who had never spoken to these communities, never spoken to these consumers, are going into the market. And brands who had been in the market and had been a staple of the market for a long time are finding very new and innovative ways to get their brand messages out there. And all of that is what we'll be talking about this evening. But before we get into that, I wanted to thank News Corp's diversity team, who are a host tonight. They very generously not only donated the room and donated the wonderful refreshments, but the team has been just amazing in working with us to put this together. So thank you very much. And to welcome us on behalf of News Corp, Pamela Fisher. I think nobody better than her, because she has been with News Corp for 14 years now in a wide variety of roles. Exactly, she started when she was 6. She is the Vice President of Corporate Diversity for News Corp. She was appointed the company's Chief Diversity Executive in 2010, and she works both with the senior executives here as well as community leaders, and is responsible for developing and implementing a very comprehensive, integrated approach to diversity. And she's also responsible for strengthening News Corp's relationships and market shares with diverse consumers and communities, not only here in the US, but globally as well. So, Pamela?
I do have some notes. Thank you so much. When I came downstairs, the energy in the room was just contagious. I thought, That's what they meant by Super Tuesday. This group, this is what they mean. So thank you all for being here today. And Amy, thank you and Newicki for this opportunity and for assembling such an impressive group of panelists to explore these new and much needed rules of engagement. So good evening to all, and welcome to News Corporation, the parent company of Fox, the Wall Street Journal, HarperCollins, the New York Post. It's our pleasure and privilege to co-host this event with Newicki. We look forward to broadening and strengthening our mutually beneficial and supportive relationship with you. And speaking of partnership and relationship, none of this would be possible without the support from my colleague and my friend, Audrey Pass. Audrey, stand up, please. Audrey is Senior Director and Producer at Fox 5 and My 9 here in New York. She's also a board member of the Newicki Foundation and responsible for strategic alliances and partnerships. Audrey has played a key role in nurturing and facilitating corporate diversity's partnership with Newicki, and I am grateful for her commitment and support to not only our diversity efforts, but also to empowering the next generation of women leaders in communications. And as a result of her perseverance, Audrey can be pushy, we are excited and proud to announce that News Corp will be partnering with Newicki to provide scholarships to Newicki students in broadcast and print communications. So for those of you who don't know, News Corp is a global and media entertainment company which prides itself with providing a diversity of voices across all of today's media platforms, including television, cable, digital, newspaper, and book publishing. The company recognizes the importance of understanding and valuing the diverse audiences and communities that we serve both domestically and globally. We understand that there are 157 million women in this country compared to 152 million men, and that we make up nearly 59% of the labor force, and that women control 12 trillion, that's with a truck, $12 trillion of the overall $18 trillion in global consumer spending. And not to steal your thunder, I know you're going to give us some data points as well. We also understand that African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Native Americans account for nearly 38% of the population and control nearly $3 trillion of domestic spending. And finally, we understand that we cannot ignore these dramatic demographic shifts. And as a result, News Corp has made diversity and inclusion an intentional business choice and effort that have measurable impact on the success of the global marketplace. So through the Corporate Diversity Department, News Corp endeavors to provide diverse and underserved communities with access to opportunity in 4 core areas. And they include workforce diversity, community investment, supplier diversity, and finally, developing multicultural business initiatives that reflect and respect today's diverse society. And the last area of focus is exemplified by the development of businesses and content specifically targeted to diverse audiences. And I'll run really quickly through them. And this is just a sampling. Amistad Publishing is an imprint from HarperCollins, and it publishes works by and for people of African descent. Bounce TV, which is a new partnership with the Television Stations Group. It's the first digital over-the-air network designed for African Americans. Fox Hispanic Media, which includes cable networks Fox Deportes, which is the sports network, Utilissima, which is a lifestyle network, and Nat Geo Mundo, as well as the broadcast network, which will launch this fall called Mundo Fox. And finally, FoxNewsLatino.com, one of the new media that popped up one day, is a digital media platform featuring news, politics, and entertainment that impact the Latino community living in the U.S. And so as a media company, we can show you better than we can tell you. So I have a quick video, I think it's just 2 minutes. If we could dim the lights, and I'm going to hopefully figure it out. Bear with me. Right? Yes. Nothing came up? Oh, there you go. Nothing came up.
And so it begins. Hard to get out. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you wanna have something that's real well. Give it some time. FM. This is Orange.
Did you feel this? That's the good stuff.
There's one other video on Fox
Cutting
News
edge,
Latino.
informative, and smart. FoxNewsLatino.com. Experienced editors, reporters, and contributors who know the community are tapped into today's issues and cover the hottest news and events impacting Latinos today. Get in touch. Stay involved. Log on to FoxNewsLatino.com.
Sorry. I don't know how to minimize this thing. Okay. So as you can see, Fox News Latino embodies and epitomizes the company's commitment to multicultural business development and is a direct response to those dramatic demographic shifts that we are witnessing in today's global marketplace. So I look forward to hearing from all of you to get some tips and ideas on how you are meeting the needs of this burgeoning diverse marketplace. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's evening, and we look forward to partnering with you, Amy, and Wiki in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pam. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this evening. Go for it. Audrey is the SVP of Edelman's Multicultural Practice. So she has created award-winning multicultural programs for an incredibly impressive array of blue chip clients, including, and even my jaw dropped when I saw this list, including GE, Kraft Foods, Unilever, Starbucks, Merck, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Time Warner Cable, the American Heart Association, and PepsiCo. She's also a very strong advocate for both education and empowerment for underserved communities, and serves as counsel to a number of organizations, both in Latin America and in the US. And you know, finally, to introduce her, Audrey and I worked very closely together in developing this panel, and I can truly say that she's somebody who approaches multicultural issues with a great deal of acuity and a great deal of insight, and we're very lucky to have her as our moderator tonight. So Audrey.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy, for all your help in organizing tonight's event, in addition to News Corp for hosting. On behalf of New York's chapter, Women in Communications, I'd like to welcome you to the new rules of engagement, how multicultural initiatives are driving the conversation, or leading the conversation. Again, as Amy mentioned, I'm Audrey. I have the great pleasure working with a few of you in this room, as well as some of our panelists, in championing multicultural engagement, but not as a targeting tactic for marketing purposes, if not a lens with which we approach all communications in a way that's mindful and intentional. I wanted to provide a bit of context as to how we got to this moment in time and how we got to this particular conversation. It's no surprise that this country was built and formalized through immigrant communities from around the globe. What started as an idea grew into a nation as the US currently drives much of what is innovation, creativity, culture, and to some degree ideology. In 2010, I know it's so funny because all of us cite and state the same facts and statistics, but in 2010, over 80% of the growth as reported by the US Census was driven by multicultural populations. If we look at Asians at 5% at 17 million, African Americans at over 14% at 44 million, and Hispanics over 16% at 50.5 million. Multiculturalism isn't unique to the United States, nor is it specific to any one industry, as really we all are impacted by the demographic shifts that are perhaps best summed up by this video that I want to show. But before we get there, I want to talk to the new reality in terms of what the percentages look like. Over a third of the population in the US is multicultural. 50% of all children born in this year are multicultural. 48% of what the population demographic of 18 and younger is multicultural. Again, 2.6 trillion in buying power. If we look at how to engage, we over-index in all things social and digital technologies. So those are just some key info stats to take and really ground yourselves in, because that's why we're having this conversation. And with that, this is a lovely video from Univision that some of you may have seen. Actually. It's not pulling up. Center. Can you? Yeah. Oh, here we go. I just need that's just one example. But more recently, actually last week, was Time Magazine's first ever non-English cover titled Yo Decido, and it's I Decide, about the Latino influence on the 2012 election. But the numbers aren't the only part of this conversation. Its influence and impact isn't unique to just one community, and no one can deny the great influence in shaping the evolution of this country that African Americans have had, not just in advocating or delivering and developing the promise of civil rights, but truly in letting all communities of color know that anything was possible in business, in sports, entertainment, and certainly in politics. And with that, I want you to think about the fact that in 2050, the country is going to look dramatically different and somewhat like me, for better or worse, ethnically ambiguous. So what does that mean for us as marketers is what we're here to discuss today. And I'm going to raise this panel because I don't want to have the light shining on our panelists. So I'd like to introduce our panelists. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So we have with us Damaris Lasa, who's the National Brand Manager for Go Red por Corazón at the American Heart Association. Damaris drives strategy for increasing and integrating emerging markets into AHA's premier campaigns, notably Go Red for Women and Go Red por Corazón, aimed at eradicating cardiovascular disease in all women. She provides guidance for increasing and infusing diversity into every aspect of the organizations, including volunteer leadership, corporate sponsorship, grassroots fundraising, advocacy, healthcare, public relations, advertising, and digital strategies. We also have Michele Thornton, Director of Multicultural Sales at CNN. Michele is responsible for connecting CNN's advertisers with multicultural consumers. She was honored in 2011 with the American Advertising Federation's Mosaic Role Model of the Year Award, and also serves as the chair of the Mosaic Executive Council. She continues to be an advocate for diversity in the communications industry and has created strategic alliances on behalf of organizations such as the Ghetto Film School, NAMIC, AIF, Most Promising Students, and the Lewis Kahn Foundation. We also have Jana Fleishman with Media Relations for Roc Nation. Public relations veteran Jana Fleishman has strategized and implemented publicity campaigns for some of the most celebrated and groundbreaking musical artists in the industry. As lead publicist for Jay-Z's multimedia company Roc Nation, she keeps artists such as J. Cole, Willow Smith, and Rihanna in the public eye and imagination. We also have Soizic Sacrez, Client Development Director for Terra USA. As Client Development Director, Soizic is responsible for strategic pre-sales market research and B2B marketing initiatives for Terra, a leading global digital media company with presence in 18 countries throughout Latin America and the US. She leads efforts to offer clients best-in-breed advertising solutions cross-platform with a particular focus on the digital realm. And last but certainly not least, Monica Talan, SVP of Corporate Communications and PR for Univision Communications. As Senior Vice President of Corporate Communications and Public Relations at Univision, the leading media company serving Hispanic America, Monica is responsible for overseeing corporate and internal communications programming relations, social media, and corporate events. She has been instrumental in driving coverage of Univision to enhance the company's visibility in the media landscape. So to kick off, we're going to talk about the influence of multiculturals within the communication space, the evolution, the opportunities and implications for each of us in this room. So the first question I have is for Monica. As head of communications for one of the most watched networks in the country, I want to talk to you about what shifts you've seen from Univision as an influencer within the space.
Good evening, and thank you guys for joining us, and thank you for the invitation. I think, as Amy said, it's such an exciting time to be in the industry and to be reaching Hispanics. I think it's more and more and more. I was just listening to an interview with one of our executives, and in 2001 there were, I think, 15 Hispanic serving networks. There's now more than 100. And if you look at the recent announcements, including from News Corp in the last few weeks, you see that that is increasing. And the best part of it is that it's creating more opportunities for all of us. Today we're not marketing, we're not multicultural marketers, we're marketing to a multicultural nation. And that's why you're seeing these opportunities come up. You know, I joined Univision 4 years ago, and I remember calling reporters and nobody would call me back. They were like, oh, your Spanish language. I actually had one reporter who wrote a story said, that's my Hispanic quota for the year. Call me back next year and we'll talk about another story. And today I get daily calls from the New York Times, AP, etc., because of that increased interest. Now we sneeze and everybody wants to write about it, which is good and bad sometimes. But we've seen that shift with reporters, with marketers, and even with consumers. We started earlier this year subtitling our novelas because we realized that non-Hispanics also love to watch novelas. It's a genre that appeals to more. And so I think more and more you're seeing companies like Univision serve as a connector between Hispanics and non-Hispanics. And we recognize that responsibility, and so we're taking the steps to serve that role. One of the things we did earlier, actually about 6 months ago, we launched a Tumblr in English for news. And it's been a great success because there is that interest on issues that impact Hispanics. When I started, I realized a lot of people, and actually I think Roberto Suro from Pew Hispanic Center at that point said, it's funny, if you watch Hispanic media and you watch English language media, you may be living in two different worlds because of that separation. So what we started doing at Univision about 2 years ago, we started issuing transcripts in English to hold politicians and others accountable for what they were saying to our community in Spanish, and so that there was that understanding of what the communication issues were. So I think, again, it's more and more and more. It's extremely exciting, and I think it creates a lot of opportunities for anybody like me who likes to be a student of this changing demographic.
Fantastic, thank you. Michele, your organization, CNN, has done a tremendous job not only in casting diverse anchors, but telling diverse stories. How does CNN look at the opportunity of multicultural America?
So, is anybody tape recording this conversation?
Just the video camera.
Oh, I need that tape. Let me say this. I think all networks can do a better job in the face that they're portraying on the network. I think one of the things that we've done extremely well, two things. One thing that we've done extremely well is that we have tried to create a unit that tells stories that are different through Latino in America, Black in America. For CNN to have an African American news segment says a lot. But I think we've done something that's more important. I think that's relevant to this room because we all go to a lot of panel discussions, right? So I hope that we can today leave something here for you that you can take home. And what we've done is we decided to monetize that conversation, which is extremely important because we can't continue to have it, we can't continue to create it unless there's a revenue stream behind it. We can say all the things we want to, and we can say that, you know, multiculturalism is important, but when revenue is tied to it, it becomes extremely important. And so we created something at CNN called CNN Advantage, and we want to align the top advertisers with these conversations. And I say that, you know, a couple people in CNN raised their hand and said, we want to do this, and I think anybody can do that. And I do believe that there will be a trend. That's okay. I do believe that there will be a trend that you will see at content players that say, you know what, let's start to allow advertisers to have a better connection to the audiences that are coming to them. And so I hope that what CNN has done is laid out a blueprint that everyone does, because then there's more job opportunity for me to move. No, I'm joking.
We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay. Soizic, given Terra's digital footprint and award-winning content that spans not just the U.S. but throughout Latin America, what do you think is next for digital engagement among Latinos?
So first, what we've observed since Terra indeed is both in Latin America and across the different countries of Latin America and also in the US, we've observed that all the Hispanics are highly connected and more multi-screen. So the mobile usage, that it be from smartphone and the access of internet via smartphone, but also the usage of the latest technology, that it be from tablets, or also even internet TV, has been really increasing. And actually Hispanic, in some instances, index higher, like in terms, for instance, we did a research study with ComScore also, and we've observed that Hispanics own smartphone and access internet via smartphones more so than non-Hispanics, and also that they are constantly connecting and looking at new ways to actually consume their media. They are really highly using multimedia, so online video has been growing a lot. We've been doing some several live streamings also throughout, and we've done at the pan-regional level. For instance, for the Olympics, Terra has been broadcasting live streaming the Pan American Games, and we had like 15 HD TV, and we've had over 50 million viewers from the different devices. So we've really seen that kind of multi-screen taking off, and as we've seen in the video, 1 in 4 babies are now Hispanics, and among the young Hispanics, same thing for our study, we've seen that like 75% of the younger audience, 13 to 24, are actually regularly browsing the internet, more so than like 65% of them are actually watching TV. So we're kind of seeing the whole digital connection and the multiple device thing as one of the key effects. But also they are connecting to their country of origin, and they're connecting to different passion and passion points. So it's not only the devices, but it's also the type of content provided, that it be from entertainment, lifestyle, or sports. And actually, as I was giving some example of live streaming, we do have also, we've seen a lot of following in terms of music over the internet, and we're actually doing some live streaming concerts tomorrow, and we're going to see also how it works.
Excellent. Thank you. Jana, you represent one of the leading voices and drivers of pop culture from our time. And as a driver of culture, I wanted to get your take as to what does that come with? Jay-Z is not multicultural. I mean, he is, but he's mass. He's global, if anything, in talent and reach. He's money. So what does this mean as a driver of culture? And what if anything, comes with that, in addition to entertaining?
I think when you're taking someone like a Jay-Z, he has superseded everything at this point. So it's not a genre anymore. He's not a rapper, which I have arguments about all the time with certain people. At this point, he is pop culture. Because, and I think what happens is he is very honest, and it's his authenticity that's always come through. There is a lot of times, especially I can speak at least in the music industry, that people try to change who they are in order to get on a certain radio station, in order to sell to a certain audience. However, if you look at music now, you have, you know, the 14-year-old skater blonde kid in California who's rapping. You have, you know, the mom that's driving to, you know, soccer practice that is singing Willow's Whip My Hair or whatever it is. You
heard it.
So no matter what, it's not African American, all multicultural influences. This is pop culture now. So, and I think when I was thinking about the responsibility and what I think we need to impress upon the next generation, upon everyone, with ownership is where we actually get the power. And I think that's the one thing that is actually our responsibility. Roc Nation is an African-American multicultural company. So that's one of our mandates, but I don't know if to say mandates, but that's something that we do base everything in. It's always looking back and saying, okay, this kid is working his butt off, let's pull him up, let's do the internship, and always keeping it within the community, because if we don't continually bring up somebody, then we do lose all of this power. So it doesn't really matter if we have any influence, because then we don't have any buying power, and that nobody really cares. So that's it.
Thank you for that. Damaris, I have an abnormal insight into your world as you're a client. Very important client that we love. AHA is on a mission to eradicate heart disease for all women and raise awareness of the issue among all audiences. Given the health issues that face multicultural communities, how has the organization responded to the needs and the opportunity?
I have much to say about this, but
she really does.
I will contain myself. But I think about a week and a half ago, Univision actually released a really interesting study about the Hispanic patient journey. And there were some findings, some Google findings in there about, they compared the growth rate in search terms between English language and Spanish. And they compared salud to health. And the growth rate for health was 29%, salud was 272%. You know, with numbers like that, the American Heart Association has definitely stepped up and taken note in many, many different ways. I mean, there's the work that we do on the macro level affecting policy and trying to make those big societal changes, environmental changes that affect us all the way down to the mini level where we're in communities, giving lectures and seminars to 50 people. Specifically, I think one of the most visible campaigns that you guys may be aware of, and I'm actually wearing my red pants in honor of it today, is Go Red for Women. And I wear these for all of you women in communications who Unfortunately, heart disease is the #1 killer of women for many different reasons. And about 9 years ago, the Heart Association launched Go Red for Women to raise awareness just in women. Most of the studies were about men, most of the information we had were about men, and now the organization has truly turned its attention to multicultural audiences. You know, this year, I don't know if any of you guys caught it, but Star Jones, amazing engagement with our organization. She had open heart surgery, and it really, we're at a turning point. You know, the AHA is one of America's, I don't know, traditional organizations around since 1926, and it takes a lot of work to get an organization like that to address multicultural through all its departments. But I can say that this organization is definitely doing so, and you know, specifically on the targeted campaign that I work on, Go Red por tu Corazón, I'm very proud of the nuanced approach of targeting the bicultural, bilingual Latina with the understanding that it's not so cut and dry anymore. And so we very much understand that she is the gatekeeper of the Hispanic community. She is the one who is going to make those decisions in the family. And so we've launched that 2 years ago, and the growth has been tremendous. And in addition to that, you know, this year we launched a national multicultural scholarship. And again, you know, that's part of that advocacy, because in order to truly make a dent in those health numbers, we also have to affect the healthcare system. So as an organization, I mean, we're definitely involved in everything from that high level, advocating for more research, advocating for more change, all the way down to making sure our materials are culturally appropriate, we're getting the right message out there through the right channels. And you know, as my colleague said, it's an exciting time. I think what I've seen is an increased willingness to really wrestle over these issues, to really, to not just say, oh yeah, let's just do a PSA in Spanish, or you know, let's just have an African American spokesman, like to really wrestle, particularly for us, we're talking about health. We're talking about people's lives, and we're wrestling to try to get it right. So it's an exciting time for us.
I do think that brings up a difference in terms of where we're at now, trying to get it right, working diligently to get it right, and having the tough, courageous conversations to make sure that we do get it right, and really being self-reflective. How has that changed? I'm going to look at Monica, because we shared agencies for a second. What was it like when you started in the industry and communications, and how has this changed?
Well, I think, as Audrey said, it was a time where people just thought you just translate the release, or you just translate the PSA, and you've reached the audience and you can move on, or like I said, you know, it's a token story of the year. I think now they're really is interested in understanding the community, and we, you know, I think again, because of our role, we like to be out there educating not only the media, but marketers and others about it's about culture, it's about understanding the community, just like with any other group, just like women, just like baby boomers. You need to understand what is going to touch and mobilize the community. And again, I do think, I remember when I started at Fleishman Hillard in Dallas, I was brought in, and I grew very quickly because I was Hispanic and I was bilingual, but they would put me on every project because I was the one that could speak Spanish. I was, Univision actually I had a joke that, who are you today? Because one week I was representing one client and I was a spokesperson because the client didn't have somebody that spoke Spanish. And the next week I was another client you know, so it was a very different time, and now I love seeing the diversity in the field. I love seeing that people are embracing the field. I also, when I went to school, I was one of 2 Hispanics studying journalism, and I think there's been so much more diversity now. You're attracting a lot more students that are diverse and can represent and speak for the community. So I think you've seen the change both externally, also you know, senior leaders understanding that you have to invest and understand and not just do a translation, and that you're growing, you know, the future generation of journalists, of marketers, or communicators that represent that community we serve.
Okay. And from a content perspective, I think we've seen some shifts, everything from The Cosby Show, A Different World, Desperate Housewives, Modern Family, Devious Spades, which I have strong opinions about. is there an evolution of representation of multicultural audiences, and what is the role of a network to get it right and not just be stereotypical or play to well-known stereotypes, and to some extent, true or not, they exist. What is their role in shaping the perception of multiculturals within the country? Michele?
That tape is still rolling. You know, I'll have to say this. You know, a lot of people give BET a hard time, but Bob Johnson, when he started BET, he said, I am creating a network that generates revenue. He was very honest about what he was trying to do, and we've placed all these expectations on that brand. So I'll say this. People can create whatever they want to. We as consumers, and we are consumers, you know, sometimes we're like, oh, we're media executives, but I'm one of the biggest I'm sitting next to Jay-Z's person. Okay, other than I'm saying Jay-Z, okay. Look, I'm a consumer. I'm an African-American woman. I have 2 small kids. I buy a lot of stuff. Very shameful. I'm going to do better this year. But at the end of the day, I make a decision. If I turn that channel on, then I am saying that I want to see a reflection that looks like that. So we have the power. I'm not going to say, I mean, CNN has some responsibility, and me working there, I'm going to keep them honest and say, I do believe that I should see a story about my family. And I do believe that I should see a story about her family or his family. But at the end of the day, I'm going to also support and watch what I want to see, a reflection of myself. So we have a lot of power in this room, and as consumers, we just don't do it because we know we all slip and turn on the Kardashians. Okay, everybody, don't raise your hand. I know. But we have to make that stand, right? Somebody is, and we have to make that stand and say, so I'm not going to put the blame on it. Now, I'll say this, and this is going to be the last thing I say, that you said something really important about ownership. So as an owner, you don't have to own Roc Nation, right? You can take ownership where you sit in a company and make and hold people accountable. So I'm in CNN and say, don't we, shouldn't we? And you should use your power and your voice, and you don't have to look like it to feel passionate about it. Anderson Cooper has the most diverse audience on CNN. It's because Nene loves him. But that's not here. So I think that we have a lot of power, and I'm not going to hold CNN responsible when I also turn the channel and say certain, and look at certain things and have certain viewing patterns.
But Audrey, I think that's important to keep in mind, and again, I think on the Hispanic side you have a different experience, but people follow the content, and I do think that's important. And so if you look at our news ratings and how many bilinguals we attract, they're coming to us because they're getting news that they're not getting anywhere else. And I think that speaks to the opportunity, and when you're seeing all these new networks being created and all this new content targeting Hispanics, I think there's a lot of work to be done. But you know, I'm very proud of Univision because I do think we try very hard to find content that is relevant and content that speaks to our community, and we take that responsibility seriously. And I've been in meetings where we do have to make tough decisions, but I think if you look at, you know, the content overall, and even the novelas, some people may criticize the novelas, but they usually have the wise Latina character, right? The strong female who represents most Hispanic women that you know. And I think, again, that's why I think 42 out of the 50 top shows with bilinguals are on Univision, because we're creating content that bilingual audience can't find anywhere else. And I think that's what's opening doors and opportunities for many others.
Okay. This is open to all. What are the new rules of engagement as it pertains to the multicultural realm of communications? Are there new rules?
In terms of, well, I'm not sure that there are necessarily new rules, but as we were saying, there's been definitely evolution. And so that it be inside the companies, I think there are, or even in the media, as we said, there's the content that we see, but there's been a lot of changes in the last 10 years. And so we're seeing now mainstream having lots of diverse artists, that it be from Jay-Z to Shakira to the Black Eyed Peas, that are really portraying kind of the current reality of the US that is really multicultural. And so within companies as well, I think what's important is also is to have that same diversity, because it starts, like, everybody has the tendency to take kind of a sample size of one, yourself. And whatever you do or whatever you feel or whatever you're watching, you're going to be more inclined to make those type of decisions also, that it be for media budget or some kind of consumption. So having within your peers and within your company at different levels and at the table also the diversity itself helps also have that discussion and have also that approach that is more multicultural. And I think it's growing, but at the same time, and we've seen it actually also in the Hispanic markets, like a few years ago. I mean, you had kind of more of you had the Hispanic agencies and you had budgets that were allocated in different ways. Now, the multicultural budgets have shifted and can be in many different places, in a sense. They could be also in the general market agency. They could be, in our case, also like within the digital agency that was originally more general market, but it has shifted, and it also depends on the talent that they have in the company and on all the diverse people and the different multicultural people that are in. So I would really encourage that more and more.
I was going to say, I think, you know, for us, definitely a new rule is multicultural can't be an afterthought. You know, things must be born, and that must be addressed immediately from planning beginning. That, you know, that thinking is gone. And I think also that just really infusing that within all of your departments instead of having a department that is just multicultural. Really valuing multicultural intelligence in every corner of your organization and realizing the value that that brings to everything that you're doing, not just categorizing, you know, siloing, things like that. I think organizations that, the quicker you do that, the faster you're going to grow.
Okay. I have a couple more questions, but I want to open it up to the audience first. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks. We started the program talking about the diversity and the younging of the diverse culture of the population. And we're talking about all the different fabulous channels that are expanding for communicating. But education is really the issue I'd like you all to address. The youth population of our country, the diverse population, it has the lowest educational achievement and the worst educational opportunities we've seen in a long time. And so how do you, as marketers, media representatives, communicators, how are your organizations looking at either contributing to educating? You know, are we going to dumb down all the communication or have nothing in writing because young people aren't as literate or as smart? Or how are we going to communicate with them to bridge that divide between you know, diminished quality of education and the need for these young people to be engaged to be successful?
That's okay. And just, and again, Univision, but I'm sure Terra and others have examples. We actually created a program 3 years ago because we realized that there was a need, and it's called Desde el Momento. And I will tell you, I like to take ownership. Some people at Univision tell me we have to be careful. But after we launched the campaign, we saw an immediate impact in college enrollment, a huge 25% spike. And we take a little bit of ownership on that because we realized that there had not been an initiative that brought together all of the initiatives that targeted Hispanics. So we reached out to all the local and national groups and said, let's work together instead of having all of these different programs that may not be working as well. So we recognize, and I think, Jana, you said it, for us to succeed, we have to have a demographic that's succeeding and that is growing and that can step up and take that role. And we take that very seriously as well. And then last year we realized that part of the challenge is the financial burden, especially as college costs continue to go up and some of the benefits and programs that were out there are cutting down, so we launched the scholarship program. But we do think that as we partner with organizations such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, there's a lot more work to be done, and that everyone, including every communicator, has to step up and take responsibility and recognize that unless we support the next generation, we're not going to succeed.
And then let me just jump on the back of that. You know, as a parent, one, I'm not going to let a television educate my child, right? But not everyone is in that position because we know, and we've done research, the first or second Black in America features someone by the name of Steve Perry, who is a principal. He started a school and he's making phenomenal. He's actually one of our analysts now. He has but this is really not about CNN. So what I say about that is that yes, we work in corporate America, and look, CNN has done a great job. We have education segments, we are doing certain things, but I also serve on boards, right? So because you have to understand that if you want the next generation is sometimes not the children. So I'll give you an example. I sit on or serve on Soledad O'Brien's board, and she has 10 young ladies that she's putting through college. First it was her own money, and now we have a formalized board. But what we found out is that the more educated the girls were becoming, the more unsupportive the single mom was becoming. And we're like, what is going on? We're trying to change a generation, so we have to understand, one, as parents, as women, there's a couple men here, you too, that we have to make sure we understand that. So then we started doing some things for the mom, and then she started supporting the child. So as a network provider, one of the things that I love about CNN is that we have an education feature that targets the parents, because guess what? They have to go back to school as well. I mean, it's a huge issue, but there has to be awareness. So we have to, yes, be at work and program, but we also have to be in our community and having grassroots conversations and really taking ownership of something that disproportionately affects most of the people who's in here family.
And also, I just have to say with, with Roc Nation, Jay has a scholarship foundation. And for the longest time, it was his own money. And finally, we made the decision of we have to get the word out there and raise, you know, over $1 million for the carnival. And our main thing is it's not just even a college education, but also some kind of skill at this point that you have to have. I didn't go to college. The majority of the people actually that I work with that are heading up pretty music companies didn't go to college, or managers, and also teaching people that there's other ways to get ahead. And no matter what, with the technology and everything, you have to have a different type of skill if you're not going to go to college. So what we do offer, aside from touring schools, but we also have programs that you can learn. If you want to be the best hairstylist, be the best hairstylist you've ever been, but at least have something that you can have a skill for yourself, and then you can go back. And I know I keep on going back to ownership, but then you can build a business. So that's another main thing that we try to focus on.
For us, you know, one of my favorite aspects of my job is when you work at a nonprofit, you get to meet all types of people, from cardiologists, neurologists, CEOs, to community educators. And personally, I thought, what an amazing experience for future healthcare providers to be able to be a part of the Heart Association network. There are very few female cardiologists. There's a shortage of female cardiologists. And when you think of diversity, it's even less. And so we also launched a scholarship program, because part of changing that is holding up examples and role models that individuals can see and say, well, she's a cardiologist, I can be a cardiologist as well, you know. And I can tell you, this is our first year doing the scholarship program, and many of these young people their stories just make you weep, because they want to pursue careers in medicine because of a loss in their family when they were young, or because they translated for a parent who had a heart condition. And I think programs like these, like all of these that we've shared, show that deep commitment to not only getting the right message out there and providing the role models, but an understanding that we all have to do what we can in our circle of influence to create these opportunities for the next generation.
Elisa?
Well, here we actually have two questions.
Okay.
So where does social media fit into some of the new rules?
Everywhere.
We're done.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit more then, besides everywhere?
Well, if I can, yeah. I mean, for instance, we are seeing social media that it be on the digital world. Like everybody is now. I see it more as a new platform in a sense. That's like your mobile device. You also have social media, and so. For instance, at Terra, we are making sure that everything that we do is also connected, and that the users can really interact and share and choose the platform that they want to use to share. So that can be through all types of devices. So anything we do has some type of integration, because we know that people are watching, and at the same time as, for instance, they're watching an online video, they might be at the same time chatting with other users, or giving their opinion, or interacting actually with the people online. So the social media is interacting, and we are seeing that they are connecting. That's a way also to connect back with their the people in their country of origin, to connect between multi-generation as well. So there's more and more impacts definitely of the social media. And again, we're envisioning it more as a different platform, as one way to connect, an additional way to be connected.
I think media companies are no longer just pushing out information, you're engaging in a conversation. And that really is changing how you interact with your audiences. It's a fascinating time for many reasons to be in media, but social is one of them. It completely is changing media, and I think it's helping us preserve our culture. I like to say that my mom actually Skypes with her grandson every day in Spanish. And so it's keeping that connection, because she's in Mexico and he's in Texas, and they're able to connect and interact. So it's also allowing, I think, generations to stay together. It's allowing for conversations and things that couldn't happen 5 years ago to happen today.
Okay, can I ask you guys a question? How many hear the term digital divide anymore? What this has done is actually closed the gap, because now I don't have to be able to afford a computer. So I always like to say that this has given the voiceless a voice. They can say how they feel, they can say when they felt it, they can share it with other people's experiences. I really do believe it's changed so many conversations, and I'm not going to even touch the new rules of engagement, because most companies haven't learned the old rules. Say anything.
Well, it's definitely made everything immediate at this point, social media. It's, like you said, people want to say exactly what they feel, exactly what they saw, and they want to know that they have a voice. Everybody wants to know that they've been heard, their opinions matter. They want to interact with their celebrity. They want to know that, you know, they posted their video and somebody saw it and it affected somebody, whatever it is. It has made, in my job, I have to react that much faster, because you never know what video is going to go up someplace and you're like, oh no, somebody wasn't supposed to see that. But you know, it has made everything immediate, and it really has taken down a lot of the barriers, I think, between not just different, we're talking about different cultures, but also the divide between, let's say, a company and their consumer, a celebrity and their consumer. Yeah. Because now on Twitter, you can talk to your favorite celebrity if they're on Twitter as well, and they will respond directly back. So it's changed the game completely.
And from a media standpoint, yeah, we're seeing also immediately the reaction, like which of the stories. I mean, that's no longer, if you were to go in a media room, way back then people were just hypothetically debating on maybe a title of an article, or and nowadays, I mean, we all have our analytics, our backend, and we're also looking at that, and we see the immediate reaction also of the users, what they are commenting on, what they are reacting to, what they are starting chats about. So from media professionals, that has also helped us evolve and improve.
In the nonprofit sector, it's definitely driving change in that there's certain big decisions that companies and nonprofits have made that people can immediately react. You know, Coleman comes to mind, you know, certain decisions that you make, and everyone's online chatting away, and you definitely have to think very long and hard about decisions you're going to make and what the reaction could be, and so it's causes to be a little more careful and thoughtful about things that they're doing. I think JCPenney and Ellen DeGeneres, you know, these social media is definitely driving companies to have to come out and respond and stand behind and take a stand on things that maybe they've not taken a stand on before. They have to take a stand. So I think it's good.
To kind of synthesize, I think it's, if you look at the numbers, we over-index on cell phone penetration, we over-index on social media, and I'm talking about the multicultural community as a whole. The fastest, the most engaged constituency on Twitter, educated African-American women. So in terms of the rules of engagement, it's an imperative, and it's made all organizations, companies, institutions, personalities immediate in their intentions and more transparent in their actions. So it's exciting because we have to be held accountable to higher levels of engagement, at the same time, higher intentions as a whole. So I think there's two questions back there before we close.
One question I have.